All right, so I'm going to jump in here. Good morning. If you're on mute, that's okay. I want you to stay on mute if you got barking dogs or something happening. Some of you guys are getting good already with your Zoom backgrounds. Barbara Shalou, good morning. We got people from all over joining us, and this is part two. Good morning, Anthony, Jennifer, Jana. Good. JJ Tolentino from the Tolentino Fine Living Home team. Lauren Douglas, Rhonda, Ellen, Coco. I didn't get that right. I know. Don't, Nicole. I know what you're doing right now. Okay. He's on mute, so he's not saying anything. So that's that. He's probably chatting. He says he's laughing with us. He's probably got a crying baby background there. Hey, Joe, Alma. I said hi to Jennifer. And then, look, Pauly C is joining us. That's my wife. Okay, so let's jump in because today's conversation is going to be rooted around selling strategy, so pricing. I'm getting a little feedback there. You guys hearing that? Does it sound like there's some feedback? I'm going to mute everybody. If you want to talk, you can. Hello. Yep. For some reason I was getting feedback. So if you want to talk, you're happy to unmute yourself and raise a question. I want to make this an interactive platform. So we're having conversations around a market shift. So for some of you guys who didn't join us on the last call, my name's Paul Campanero, Coach Pauly C. Some of you guys know me as online. And we're going to focus around a shift conversation. And when the markets shift, what do we do? How do we shift our business? So we had a great conversation last week on mindset because everything begins and ends with your mindset, and continuously replenishing and recharging the batteries in a market like this is going to be essential, because all the things that we talk about technically to be able to execute and perform and do are all relatively fundamental, and it's simple, just not easy. You bold people know what I'm talking about. But if my heart set isn't in the right place, and certainly my mindset won't be in the right place. And so being intentional about your mindset was what we covered last time. And this is all coming straight out of Gary Keller's Shift, the book Shift. And if you haven't read that book, pick it up. I'm going to be maneuvering through tactic number 7 today, which is seller pricing strategies. And man, I was having flashbacks when I started going through this chapter. So easily we forget, So easily we forget things that we've experienced, lessons that we've learned, hardships that we've endured. And for those of you who were around back in 2008, there was a lot of lessons learned, and so much that I actually forgot. And I learned big lessons. So for some of you guys who don't know, 2008 was my first full year in the business. I had been licensed for a while prior to that, part-time. I took a break for a year. Invested in real estate, but 2008 is when I burned the bridge and decided to go full time. And for those of you who remember, that was right at the onset, literally, of the housing crisis, the recession in 2008. So January of 2008, literally January 1st of 2008, I decided to go full time. My wife thought that was a great idea. And no one thought that was a great idea. No one in real estate or around me thought that was a great idea. Everybody who I had known, who was I was working with on the Strip, I was working in at the Wynn Hotel at the time, told me it was a terrible idea. But you know, when you're just done with something, you're just done with it, and you know you're done with it. And I was at a point where I knew I was just done with my life on the Strip. Even though I could see, and I didn't really have a clear picture as far as what was going to happen. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. We're kind of in a transition market, right? Because people say, what kind of market is it? And they say, it's a buyer's market, it's a seller's market. But you rarely hear, we're in a transition market. Guess what? We're in a transition market. Okay. This is happening right now. So the clarity on the direction of the market. And so I knew that while the earth had begun to rumble in with the economy and with the housing industry, I knew that I was done. So my first year, 14 transactions, then 36, 52 by year 3, and then year 3 into year 4, 52 to 129. Now remember, 2008, 9, 10, and 11. That was at the heart of the recession, because the recession really didn't start slowing down till sometime in mid to probably late 2012, if I recollect. 2013, we knew it was beginning to turn around. But you're talking about a good 5 years of recession in Vegas. So if I can double, triple, and break 100 transactions my first 4 years in the business in a recession that was a good 5 years, then look, you can make it. It's possible. Will it be easy? No. Will you have to double or triple or possibly 10x your efforts? Yes. And the good news is that we talked about on last call is that fire purifies. Fire purifies. So in that, the heat is going to burn a lot of people out of this business. I'm saying that respectfully, right? I'm not trying to be disrespectful with that, but the heat is going to purify. And what's going to happen is people are just not going to be willing to do what it takes. People who are tied to and are unwilling to get uncomfortable in uncomfortable conversations, and we're going to talk about that today with working with sellers, and are unwilling to do what it takes to improve your skill set, because now more than ever, if you're just relying passively on referrals, you could very well easily be out of the business if you don't have some other wherewithal or means of financial income. This could be rough for you, and you could be out of business. I saw it. People who were in the business a long time, 10, 15, 20 years out of the business in Las Vegas because they were unwilling or didn't move fast enough on shifting their business and how they engaged conversations. Because the matter of the fact is that I now more than ever, dealing with motivated and qualified people is going to be essential. And the 6s and 7s and 8s, the people who would like to, and if it happens and I want to, those are the people who fall out. Those are the people who are going to run by the wayside. And those are the people that are going to cancel escrow. But the 9s and 10s are out there. And then when we hit bottom and we begin to recover, whether that's a few months or a couple years, I mean, we're not going to get into that conversation. That's when the buying's really going to ramp up, because in 2010, 11, and 12, we sold more houses in Las Vegas in 10, 11, and 12 than in 5, 6, and 7, 2005, 6, and 7, which was the hot market, right? Because when somebody says, how's the market, or is the market good? Well, it's completely subjective, right? Because in 2010, 11, and 12, investors were all over the place. They were almost 60%. It was 50 some odd percent of the transactions in Las Vegas were from investors who were swooping in. And we talked a little bit about that prior, as far as how am I going to be shifting my business? And today we're working on seller pricing strategies, but just for a moment, start thinking about how you're going to do business differently. Your database, connecting with them, loving on them, creating touch opportunities directly and indirectly to strengthen the rapport of the relationship. Look, if anything, right now is an awesome opportunity to say, hey, how are you? Some of you guys saw the video that I did a couple weeks ago on being human, connecting with your database. Be human first. How are you? Are you safe? Is everything okay? Be hospitable as far as being the source of the source. There's so much information happening right now, daily and weekly, for you to be able to purvey to your database, and then come from how you might be able to help them professionally. But look, those first couple calls, you're probably not even talking about that. If you're just being human and being hospitable, then what better time to an excuse for you to call your database and connect with them. Call your database and connect with them so that you can strengthen those bonds of rapport. Because, man, some of you guys are already doing it now, right? You're calling them, and those conversations, man, you hear it in their tone. Their response is authentic. Like, I'm doing good. Yeah. And there's a heartfelt connection there because you care and because you want to connect. And you don't even have to ask for referrals. You're probably not even talking about business right now. Just strengthen those bonds of rapport. What better time to then set those expectations? To set those expectations that, hey, Nicole, I've been so bad at staying in touch. You know, I want to make sure that I stay in touch a little bit more often. And so, I mean, do you mind if I stay in touch? You know, every few weeks or every month, just to see how you're doing? Of course, they're going to say yes. And to reestablish that expectation that, hey, it's normal that I call you right now every 4 or 5 weeks, and then ultimately every 3 months. Because some of you guys I know are uncomfortable when I first got in the business, right? Like, what am I going to talk about every 3 months? And that Ford model of being able to stay in touch with people, family, occupation, recreation, and dreams is something good to use as the foundation of a good conversation. And I still don't have to ask for referrals, by the way. Avi Dangor, Maria Calva. I don't know if you know Avi out of the office on the west side with Berkshire. You know how Avi is? Shake your head. No, you don't know Avi. You should know Avi, Maria, because Avi is the top producer on the west side for Berkshire. And I took Avi to lunch one day. I know I'm on the bunny trail right here, but I took Avi to lunch one day because I knew Avi was a specialist with repeat and referral business, and I was not. I was the cold call cowboy. I was taking 10, 15 listings a month on cold calling, and but I knew that I was losing a lot of money because I wasn't being intentional in my database. And so I took Avi to lunch, and I picked a nice restaurant on the west side. The west side of Vegas is like the nicer part of Vegas, and we're at a nice restaurant, and I have my nice linen napkin, and we're eating a salmon with pesto fancy sauce, and so we get done. And I say, okay, Avi, tell me a little bit about how you get your repeat and referral business. And I take out a piece of paper, and I'm like ready to take notes, right? And Avi's like, Paul, put your pencil down. And I go, so what's up? So then he takes out a piece of paper, and he takes out his inside coat pocket. He's got a sport jacket on. He takes out a piece of paper. It's folded into fours, and he unfolds it, and he shows it to me, and there's names on it, printed out. It's a printout. And he goes, Paul, my assistant gives me this every Monday. And every Friday, it's my job to turn it back into her. And if I don't have all the names crossed off, there's a consequence. Now, he may or may not have told me the consequence. I don't recall, but there was a consequence, a financial one, if I recall, on if he didn't make his contacts and touch his people. And now this is before I had gone over to Keller Williams and the phrase which so many of you with Keller know so eloquently, which was, Paul, I just touch him. I just touch him. And he goes, I don't ask for referrals. I take my A pluses to lunch or to coffee, but I always touch, and I always make it a point to call people. I do direct message and text people. He goes, but absolutely, I keep track of making sure that I call people on a regular basis, and that's scheduled out to make sure that I touch them. Now, remember, he said, I don't ask for referrals. I think that's a big part that we miss out on, is that this is a relationship-based business. That's a stereotype you guys have all heard, right? But do we live it? Do we actually live it on what that looks like to just stay in touch with people? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Okay, cliche, I get that. But how am I living just staying in touch with people? And then when you prioritize understanding people and connecting with people, whether it's people you know or people you don't know, look, that energy is real. And whether it's affirmation, now back to mindset just for a second, whether it's affirmations or prayer or music or meditation or whatever it is that needs to put yourself in the right mindset to engage the database, to engage prospecting, to pick up the phone, because that doesn't have to stop right now. We can still pick up the phone and nurture relationships, period, point blank, no matter where those relationships come from, because each of you do it differently. You can still do that. And you can be the light. You can bring the light. You can bring the love. Okay. Now let's jump in here, because bringing the light and the love to sellers right now. Next week, we're going to talk about buyers, dealing with apprehensive, anxious buyers who are reluctant. So just FYI, tell your friends. I'm going to put that link out. This same link will work next week for working on dealing with apprehensive buyers. We're going to deal with that next week. This week, it's seller pricing strategies. So right at the onset, tactic number 7, jumping in. I'm gonna cruise through this, and then we're gonna have some conversation around this as well. But I'm gonna cruise through this, and there's not gonna be a PowerPoint like we did last week. But jumping right in, I'm on page 135 in the Shift book. Gary talks about the moment the media declares a real estate shift, it's as if the market just got doused in a cold shower. Man, do we feel that right now? The result is fearful buyers, pickier buyers, and eventually fewer buyers. The result is fearful buyers, pickier buyers, and eventually fewer buyers. Only properties that appear to be serious bargains get serious attention. Sellers who are slow to recognize the shift will become overpriced and consequently overlooked. Instead of guessing there is no top, buyers now predict there is no bottom. The truth is the market remains full of people who genuinely want to buy or sell. The question is at what price? And the desire to do business hasn't gone away, but the heat has gone out of the market. Man, we're feeling that right now. So there's going to be a window of opportunity for these sellers right now. And so, and we already know that regularly, right? When we talk about pricing property in this market that we're just coming out of, the seller hot market for most of the markets that you guys are in, we know that the longer a property sits on the market, regardless of price point, the longer a property sits on the market, the worse off you are. And that stereotypically that there's the first few weeks, and even for luxury properties, the first few months, and probably, Maria, even for commercial properties, there's some window of opportunity, and that's subjective. We're not going to go into a debate or theory around that, but there's some window of opportunity. And then once you're outside that window, then the property's stigmatized. There's something wrong with the property. There's something the sellers may not be motivated with the property. In Power Hour, we talk about that question: how often do you shop for overpriced properties? Or we go into this in Power Hour, we talk about propositional closing, where we create a storyline, and we go, remember when you were shopping for property and you saw a home and it was on the market for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months? What was the first thought that came to your head? And then their response helps us get them into that new reality, or recollecting the fact that, oh yeah, properties on the market a long period of time is not a good thing, and because they forget, right? And so helping them remember that. So your job is to get them to grasp why pricing right must happen right now. Pricing's never simple. It's a skill as well as a science. Real estate agents don't actually approach it with the thoroughness it deserves. Friggin' men. You know, I think my wife and I were talking about this. We were having a conversation about pricing property, and someone who'd been in the business a long time gave me their opinion. And because I didn't really know, I'm still getting acclimated even still to Austin and areas and pricing. And I said, you know what, I'm going to take this person's perspective on it because I really don't know as much. And sure enough, a week later, my original analysis was right on. And I really believe that my skill set with pricing, and I consider myself I'm a pricing expert, really, was having to deal with a shifting market where the market was beginning to fall. And so understanding what pieces I needed to look at in regards to pricing of the market, pending, contingent, available, sold, and understanding the speed of the market. That's going to be something real fast here. We're in a transitioning market where everything's kind of on a freeze, but over the next 30, 60 days, we're going to start seeing the ramifications of that on what's really going to happen, and paying attention to the speed of the market. You guys should all be paying attention. You guys should all have saved searches. So when I did, one of the first things that I did when I was newer to the business was I saved available homes. Single family, condo, townhome. I think I can't remember if I did 1 or 2 different searches on that to differentiate. I think I did single family and then condo, townhome separate. Available, pending, and closed within the last 30 days. Now I get it. Title will give you that, but I can't wait 30 days in a market like this. I want to know what's going on every single week. I'd probably even pay attention to now, which I didn't pay attention to then, temporarily off the market. I think in the first couple of days, all this stuff was happening last week, and I haven't looked at it. There was like in a span of a week, there was like 30 properties off the market in the entire greater Austin MLS. And then within a span of 3 days, it was like 170. Okay. Talk about speed of the market. When somebody says, how's the market? Or when you have to have a conversation and leverage the art of influence to help a seller understand what's really going on, because this could mean life or death for them financially, or for the wherewithal of getting their property sold if they're a 9 or 10 in motivation. I not only have to get good at pricing property, I got to get good at the skill of having an influential conversation to help the sellers understand where we're at, and more importantly, where we're going. Okay, so the most successful agents become masters of pricing. Buyers are always looking for value regardless of the market. And they want the best property available at the lowest price. A shift doesn't change this, it accentuates it. Man, I remember that. I remember buyers, if you were not one or, I remember a coach when I was getting coached around this. Thank God. I know at the time my wife almost killed me because I was paying $1,000 a month for a coach for money I really didn't have. I was putting it on the credit card. But if I didn't have that coach, I wouldn't have got some of the advice that I needed on pricing. Because if you're not number one or two, look, if you're not in top three in price in a market that's beginning to shift downwards, forget about it. Forget it. The buyers have this concept that because the market's shifting, I want the best deal. Now, they already want that. You know that. You guys have experienced that. But in a shifting market, that's accentuated. And if you're not one or two, three even is, you better be smoking hot for a three, right? One or two, man. You need to be one or two in price because buyers are looking for that hot deal. And so I'm making observations and forecasting, because this is a science and a skill. Okay, so before I go any further, thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, delusions. Unmute yourself if you want to jump in here. This is the interactive portion of the program.
Can you elaborate on the saved searches that you did?
Yeah, so I went into the MLS and I didn't differentiate any area, so it was all of the MLS, and then I just saved active properties. So there's right now, if somebody knows it, blurt it out. But if you don't know it, don't say it. How many properties are available today? Anybody know? Look, that is a key indicator. Here's what I have to know. Maria's mouthing something there, I think. Yeah, I think she said, I know. Available properties, pending. You got to know that. Sold in the last 30 days, you should have some idea. Now, you don't have to know the available inventory every day, but what if you checked it once a week? I'll tell you, in a shifting market, which is we're about to experience, we're experiencing it already right now. When it begins to decline, if that is the case, which could be the case, you're on the front line. Your boots on the ground for your sellers, for your buyers. Active and pending contingent, we called it in Vegas, but I think you guys just call it pending here in Austin, is numbers that I need to know off the top of my head, even if it's a week old, but no more than a week old. I mean, you need to be looking at that every week, Coco.
Well, is that pertaining to specific, because you know how Austin is very specific on area. So would you recommend that everyone breaks down? You've got East Austin, West Austin, Central Austin, Cedar Park, like completely separating them, because in our board, I don't know how familiar you are with the board, our board, everything's in one. So if you pull up what is active right now, it's going to give you everything in Hayes County, Travis County, Williamson County, and beyond. Even.
I want that. Now, if you are already working a specific area and that's your area and that's your territory and that's where you hang, then you should know those numbers. But I would want to know the general overall temperature of what's going on as a whole to understand. But knowing that micro data is equally as important if you target specifically that area.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, and I think it's not just area. It's price, right? You've got people who are buying and selling houses in the 250, 300 range all day, every day still. It's where it's going to start to cut off is your people who are in your $100,000 or $1 million plus homes.
Oh, it's all going to slow down. If in a recession, it'll all slow down. It will all slow down. Now, buyers are going to come. Those price points, Josh, are going to slow down last because the luxury market's going to feel it first. Obviously, they're already feeling it right now. Jumbo loans, don't even think about it. Supplemental creative financing around luxury properties, they've pulled them already. So $300,000, 300 and under in Austin's still hot. There's still multiple offers happening. Absolutely. Will that change? I don't know. Here's what I know. In Las Vegas, it changed. And for affordable properties, which at that time was, and here's how we know it. Here's how we know it changes. That's how prices begin to decrease. People stop buying and they go, nope, no, I'm not doing anything because this is going down. And then properties, even that are in the basement on price, if they're not number one, they're not number one or number two, they don't sell. And that's how you go from an average price point of $300,000 in Vegas down to $108,000 in a matter of, I can't speak accurately on it, but it was a year, 2 years, like within 12 to 18 months. I don't know exactly what the time frame was. Are people still going to buy and sell? Yes. But keeping an eye on what's going on with the market with that for those key indicators I said to keep an eye on. And if you work certain price points, obviously that'd be important too, to make sure that you're keeping an eye on what's going on with your micro data versus the macro data as a whole. I think paying attention to both is important. Maria.
So I was listening to one of the agents on Berkshire Hathaway yesterday, and I don't know how the buying process works in Austin. But here, you go into escrow and start the loan process, and then you do the inspection, right? Mm-hmm. So he was recommended basically asking your sellers to do the inspection before. So let's say you get a listing. You ask your seller to get the inspection done. So like that, when you list the property, you already have the inspection in hand. And that will make the process easier. And Dan,
Dan who?
Your pupil.
Oh, Danny Mom?
Yeah.
Danny Mom? Yeah.
So he made a video about it. So I wanted to ask
we're about to throw Dan Mom under the bus here. That's why. I love that. Dan's a great agent. I don't know. I see some challenges with that possibly though, as far as the inspection is only good at for the moment that it occurs, like an appraisal, right? It's good for the moment that it occurs. So I don't know as far as what other agents in Las Vegas are doing with that, Maria. So I really couldn't speak on that. I'd be a little hesitant to do that because if I was a buyer's agent, I'd want my own inspection regardless of what you gave me. Because what happens if in Texas this happens a lot, and absolutely it's rarer in Las Vegas, is foundation issues. Like what if there wasn't a foundation issue 30 days ago, but there is one now because there's been so much rain? Or I don't know. Any thoughts on that or perspectives on that?
Yeah, I've seen some people do it before, and the thing to note too is that you have to disclose everything that shows up on that report. So if your seller is not interested in making all those repairs, then you might want to be careful of that too.
Yeah, Vegas is a lot different than Austin on that. And Vegas and Nevada and California, that's not really a concern. Like when I came here, I found that odd that sellers didn't want to disclose the report because of being held accountable to make repairs. Nevada and California, that's not a social norm out there. They absolutely, in fact, it's normal to provide the inspection and to send it to them, the entire inspection. It's a social norm out there.
So one of my last listings, I had my seller had already done an inspection, and it actually did help buyers walking through the door because of course, every inspection is in the eye of the beholder, right? Every inspector is going to find something different. Mm-hmm. So our inspectors found X, Y, and Z. My clients went through and did everything on it, and it did help with buyers. The buyers still got their own inspection. So I don't think it's going to speed up the process at all because like Paul said, if I was an agent representing the buyer, I'd tell them to get their own. Yeah. However, what it did do is they already knew a pretty good blanket of underlying things that may have been, when you're walking through the house or commercial building or whatever you're doing and you're going, if that looks like that, what does the underneath look like kind of thing?
Yeah.
So I think it's in the eye of the beholder,
yeah,
but it doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't think it could hurt as far as expediting the process more efficiently, time-wise. I'm not sure. I wish Dan was here to be on the call. Dan, join us on Shift Mastermind, Dan Mom. Okay, any other thoughts or comments? And we can continue moving on here on pricing specifically. Good. All right. Art of pricing persuasion. So the ability to persuade sellers. Now, this is a lot on mindset. but also on strategies. A seller not only needs you to master the science of skill of pricing, but also the art of persuasion. The market becomes oversaturated with unsuccessful wannabes who didn't get the formula of direction and speed. I'm going to get into that in a second. Gary Keller is, he's like, he just gets right to the point sometimes. For sellers in a shift, the need for an agent who has mastered the science, the skill, and the art of pricing becomes critical. The essence of the pricing science is identifying the right comparables. And obviously there's main factors like location, size, amenities, and condition. Price impacts marketability and ultimately sellability. We know that. Sellers are also challenged to come to terms with another reality of the marketplace, the direction and the speed. So the direction is going to be factored by the economy, the motivations of the available buyers. So what are buyers doing right now? And then I'm reconciling that with listed, pending, and sold data. And that's the speed of the market. That's understanding the speed of the market. What's the absorption rate? Some of you guys have heard that. And some of you guys know because that number is relatively thrown around pretty stereotypically. Like there's a 2-month supply, there's a 3-month supply. Keeping an eye on that data. And man, I swear I'm like having flashbacks every time I'm engaging this conversation. I remember seeing there's 5,000 homes, there's 6,000 homes, there's 7,000 homes, there's 8,000 homes, there's 10,000 homes, there's 15,000 homes. That stuff will change faster than you know. Patterns will emerge and require interpretation. Sometimes they're obvious, sometimes they're not. Sellers need to understand the full extent the market trends and implications for pricing means. More sellers drive price down, more buyers drive price up. Some fundamentals we already understand. Properties that are priced appropriately priced for the market will always make the best first impression. If the price doesn't match the direction of the market, then the buyers will merely move on. The best way to this was the gold nugget for me right here. The best way to truly serve a seller in a shift is to persuade them to outthink the other sellers they must compete against. The best way to truly serve a seller in a shift market is to persuade them to outthink the other sellers they must compete against. They must price ahead of the market. Now, remember I said we're in a transition market, so I'm not throwing at you guys like, all right, get in there and start undercutting prices, because that's not where we're at yet, right? But here's what we know. There's going to be some element of consequence to an economy that is basically frozen. There's going to be some consequence to that. What that is, well, that's part of what I was telling you at the onset. Pay attention to those key indicators to see what's happening. But if the market starts slipping and you got a seller who's a 9 or a 10, okay, pre-qualification. Let's start there. How well do you pre-qualify? And if you don't pre-qualify, you better get your butt on the pre-qualifying bandwagon, because understanding my seller's motivation at a deep level. Okay. Now, 2 questions I got from MAPS coaching that changed my world just in the last 6 months. Look, I've been in the business a while and constantly putting myself in conversations where people who are much smarter and much further down the road than me has only continued to nurture my growth. So two questions I got just several months ago from Diana Kokoska. You don't know who she is, Google her, Diana Kokoska. Don't ask me for me to spell it. Diana Kokoska said, listen, if you want to dig deep on motivation, these 2 questions and go around the mountain 2 or 3 times on these 2 specific questions to dive deep on motivation. Number 1, why is that important? You should be writing this down. Why is that important? Okay, so I'm going to move to Florida. Oh, you're going to move to Florida, Mr. Seller. Fantastic. Why is that important? Well, I want to be closer to my mom. Closer to your mom? Well, of course. I mean, being your family is so important, especially in times like these. I totally appreciate that. Repeat, approve. You Power Hour people know what I'm talking about. Some of you guys who I've coached, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, but now the second question. Okay, so the first question is, why is that important to you? The second question, what would that do for you? What would that do for you? Okay. Now, somebody role play with me just for a second, okay? Nicole, you just give me some motivation. Tell me you're going to move somewhere and then make up some motivation, okay?
Okay.
Give it to me.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to move to Florida.
Florida. Wow, that's exciting. That's a lot different than Texas. Why is moving to Texas to Florida important to you?
So I have family there that I'd like to get closer to.
Family. Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly during these times, family is so important. We're getting a good reflection on time with family and being near them. So I totally appreciate that. I'd feel the same way if I could do the same. So, what's that going to do for you being close to family?
Try to make a connection. I've got some siblings out there that I'm 20 years older than, and I just don't have a relationship with them, and realizing, that would be a nice relationship to have.
Wow. 20 siblings who are 20 years older.
Younger.
Oh, younger. Younger. Gotcha. Siblings that you're 20 years young, that are 20 years younger. And, man, so why is that important though?
I mean, if this quarantine's taught me anything, it's that relationships are important in your life, and you never know how long you have to form them.
Yeah, relationships are important. I've got a good dose of that myself in my own immediate family from my childhood and making those connections. So what's that do for you though?
I guess it makes that bond tighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is that important?
Because what else do you have if you don't have family?
Yeah. Bam. There it is right there. That's it right there. Now look, don't get awkward. Don't get weird when they get weird, because they're going to feel a little weird for a second when you go, why is that important? And that hesitant, that pause is because they haven't really thought through it. Mm-hmm. Or they may have, more often they haven't, they may have, but then they're going to go there, right? Consciously, they're going to go there. Subconsciously, they may have already been there. Okay. So when you ask that question and they're silent on it, don't talk. Just let them answer it. Let them think. You're a high D, like you want to jump in there and like answer the question for them or help them along in the answer. Don't do that. Okay. Because when you hear it, when you're at the heart of motivation, you hear it. Okay. Because what did she say? What did you say, Nicole, at the end?
If you don't have family, what do you have?
If you don't have family, what do you got? So somebody says, I want a bigger yard for my kids and it's really important. Oh, why is that important? So what's that going to do for you? And then I think it was a role play. I was in Power Hour the other day. We did it. And it came down to, man, because I just want my kids to experience what I experienced when I was a kid. Bam, there it is right there. Most agents know surface level motivation. Three bedroom, 2 bath, 2-car Leander. Okay, cool. But now here's why that's important. Those two questions on motivation. Why is that important? What's that going to do for you? Because at the moment of impact that you need to leverage somebody in a shifting market to remind them why this is important. Because sometimes they're what's it called? They're long-sighted. What's it? You can only see what's in front of you, whatever that is, right? You can only see what's in front of you. Right? So all they see is this price that they're not comfortable with. All they see is anxiety about their bills or whatever it is that's going on because they've gotten furloughed or drama in their life or unhappiness with the circumstances. That's all they can see. And as a consultant, my ability to have this art of persuasion, right? Because we talked about the science of pricing, but this art of persuasion to be able to engage people, guys, that's the skill set that I'm going to need to be able to have better conversations. Now that conversation, that probably doesn't happen. That may happen in the pre-qualification, but certainly if I didn't get to go deep enough on that pre-qualification when I'm confirming the appointment before the appointment, man, I'll tell you what, that's a great conversation to have face-to-face because you have so much energy and body language to be able to exchange outside of just that voice over the phone. You got to dive deep on that to be able to help them understand that pricing ahead of the market is going to be critical. Okay, thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns? Because the last part of this is not chasing the market and talking about not chasing the market. But any thoughts or comments or questions or concerns or delusions on that little piece that we just covered? The art of pricing persuasion.
Paul, I have a question. So I currently have a listing that should come up in the next couple months. However, they've already started their process of building. It's not a contingency situation. And they're really concerned about the price of pricing their property correctly. And it's fairly new. It's a modern design. I'm really concerned that they're going to want to price it a little bit too high. And so with them not needing to sell their house in order to move into this new property, would there ever be a question or a conversation around, leasing it for a little while? Would that be in their best interest since they don't have to sell it, but they want to?
Yep. So the first thing I always have to check myself on is that I'm not telling myself stories. Right? That's the first thing I need to check myself on. Anything that comes up as far as what I think or what I feel, that's a loser. Okay. Now, when I say that's a loser, I'm not saying you're a loser. I'm saying that's going to cause me to lose. Okay. So what I think and what I feel doesn't matter. Now, what does that create? I want to help more people. Say yes. Okay. And,
Yes.
say yes. If you're on mute, you still have to say yes. Okay. Okay. So I want to help more people, but to help more people, I have to understand them. And so I think I heard a little think in there. You said, I think, but to help them, I have to understand them. To understand them, I have to ask good questions. So what better, and we talked about this in Power Hour this morning, and we talk about it all the time, right? Than to stay in the QA, who, what, when, where, how, why, around situation and motivation, and to be, Sharmila said it this morning. I felt you were like carefully curious. What did she say? Who was on Power Hour this morning? Remember what she said? Cautiously curious, or what? She said something like that.
Cautiously curious.
Cautiously curious. Is that what she said? That's what
Someone
she
I
said.
remember. Yes.
Yeah. Carefully curious, or no, I say intensely curious. No, that's my D, right? Because I'm like, tell me what's up. What's going on? Well, who, what, where, when, how, why, right? But with you'll scare casually curious. That's what she said. That's what she said. That's a video right there. Let me write that down. Casually curious, right? Josh, that's what causes me to not be salesy. Okay. Because what happens is when people, whether it's yourself, because sometimes that drunk monkey's stuck in my own head, that I don't want to be salesy. What is salesy? Salesy is someone who doesn't know how to communicate conversation at a high level. So they come across salesy because their intent and purpose is put at the forefront. I want to close you. I want to move you forward, versus putting somebody else's intentions and priorities ahead of mine by understanding them and casually being curious about their situation or motivation. And when I do that, then that energy is real and is transferred, right? They feel, Joe, that casually, I'm curious about what's going on. And the who, what, when, where, how, why is more conversational because the energy is real around, hey, what's going on? Versus that intense curiosity. That's the difference right there. I like that a lot. See, I'm learning too. Versus the intense curiosity, which may be perceived as salesy or processed or pressured. Okay, because what do I need to know in this situation is, well, first of all, have you guys just play with me for a second, Joe? Like, have you guys pretend you're the seller? Have you guys thought about selling or renting? Have you thought about renting?
Yes. However, in my neighborhood, I feel like a lot of people do not want our homes to go for renting.
Really?
Don't want to rent.
Yeah. What causes you to have that feeling?
The neighbors really want just owners to live on the street.
Yeah, you've experienced that, people talking about it and
Yes.
conversation.
I don't want to do that to my neighbors. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
That's what I hear from them.
Well, it's such a great neighborhood. I mean, I wouldn't want, if I lived in the neighborhood either, I wouldn't want investors coming in and, I get that. I mean, that totally makes sense. How do you feel about holding on to the property a longer period of time with it being vacant and you already having been moved on and paying the rent while you're moved on and the property being vacant? How does that make you feel?
That would be the worst case scenario.
Worst case. What are your thoughts on the property just being vacant? What are your thoughts around that?
As long as we could manage to either get it sold for a decent price or put a renter in it, I guess.
Yeah, but you don't want to do that really, though.
No.
Yeah. And so, okay, so time out, break script. So staying in the think feel on where you're at. You just moved on me. Okay. Where they're at. Okay. Where they're at with situation and motivation. Now, look, I can't just create a script around that because when I'm talking about motivation, there's too many variables as far as who, what, when, where, how, why. There's too many variables. So here's what I have to do. Focus on them. Listen carefully. Ask good questions. And I'll tell you what, you guys have a lot of good questions that get stuck up here, and you leave them up there. A question pops into your head, like let it out. Like let that question out, because it's probably a great question when you come from curiosity to find out what they think or what they really feel. Because we're going to get into that in a second here on chasing the market. Like if they overprice their property, and we have to have a conversation with them on what's going on with the realities of the market, where we're in a transition market now. We're not slipping yet. But here's the thing: if we start slipping and you end up on the market, let's say even 30 days over what's average, Joe, what do you think buyers start thinking at that point?
That something's wrong with it.
Yeah,
or that it's overpriced.
Yep. And what do you think what do you think that means for you being able to sell for the highest price possible? What do you think that means?
Not good.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't want to be in a spot where you're chasing the market, do you?
No.
Let me tell you guys again, let's have clarity around what's happening right now. We're not there yet. Okay. We may not get there. I wouldn't bet on that, but here's what'll happen, Joe, with somebody who has another property to move into. And here would be a good question I'd ask that person. How many months would you be comfortable having the property vacant and paying the second mortgage while you've already been moved into your next home? What does that time frame look like? Just for us to have clarity on the reality of the circumstances with a market that possibly could be shifting. Look, Joe, I'm looking at them like this. I'm going with a market that could possibly be shifting.
Nodding. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then what do they say? Do you know the answer to that by the way?
I don't.
Yeah. How do you think that might help you?
It would probably be a great, thing to know, obviously. And I would know their motivation. I would know what would stretch them. And then I could help persuade them, like you're saying, to think about the consequences.
Is there a possibility that they actually haven't thought about that?
There's a possibility, probably. Because, a lot of things are going on in their lives, big steps, big things. And so I know that they're probably clouded. Their vision's clouded a bit.
Look, even if you got $1 million in the bank, you don't want to pay an extra $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 out of your pocket if you don't have to. It doesn't, nobody wants to do that or is okay with that. So having good conversations, staying in casual curiosity. I'm going to move that now. Because I used to say intense curiosity intense curiosity, but that was in reference to just staying focused. Stay focused. Look, what do we talk about in Power Hour? Ask great questions. Ask them well. Listen carefully. I do that in my business with buyers, with sellers. Ask great questions. Ask them well. Casual curiosity, empathy, love, concern. I listen carefully, and then I rinse, repeat that process. And that allows me to stay in the conversation. And then I don't have to worry about trying to close them or convince them. I don't want to convince anybody anything. I want to explore great conversations, and then we both come to a realization that, you know what? It's A, it's B, it's C. But let's have a real conversation around it. Okay, let's jump in and so I can finish this off. Don't chase the market, let the market chase you. Transitional markets are usually fleeting, like the market that we're in right now. So it's not going to stay this way for long. When will we start to move? Well, we don't know that, which is why, again, you're paying attention to your key indicators. So it's why you hear people say we're in a buyer's market, seller's market, and move on from that. And okay, so first is deciding, do I have a really motivated person in front of me? Which again, we talked about before, pre-qualifying people to truly understand, using those two motivational questions that I wanted to demonstrate for you guys, how to ask those questions. Why is that important? What would that do for you? Because if you go probably 2 times around the mountain, it's possible to go 3 times around the mountain with those 2 questions to really dive deep on why this is important. And you may not get that. And then that's a whole other conversation. Well, Paul, what do I do if I have a 6 or 7 or 8? What do I do? No? I'll tell you what you do. You don't take that listing unless they price at a price point that you know will cause it to sell. Or if they don't price it at a price point that'll cause it to sell, there's language or an agreement based on when they're going to make the price reduction under what specific time frame. Because you will not be able to afford it. What are buyers? You guys are already experiencing it right now. What are buyers doing right now with their perception of the market? Tell me.
I think most are just kind of waiting to figure out what's going to happen.
They're waiting. Now, most, a lot, yeah. Right? Every day in Power Hour, we're talking about people who have new contracts, new listings, multiple offers, showings. The market's still happening right now. To what extent in Vegas, Maria? Look, I don't know. Austin's a pretty hot market, and it's relatively diversified, much more so than Vegas. So our market's a little bit different than yours. But people are still, I guarantee you, people are still making offers and opening escrows in Vegas. That has not halted to 0. And I promise you this, we will not go 1 month where the escrows and the sales and the new listings are 0. None of your markets are going to do that, FYI. And if you just get 1, some of you have aspirations for more than that, but if you just get 1, are you okay with that? Do this. Okay? Nicole did this because it's got to be more than that, right? Okay, so we're talking about chasing the market and being strategic about what should my asking price be, what a house is worth versus what it will sell for. These are clearly different questions. When a seller is ready to sell, there's only one thing they want to know: what's the best price that their house will sell for? When sellers go to price their property, 2 things matter: where the market is now and what direction the market is going. Because getting the maximum price now or getting the maximum price possible are 2 different things. How's that? Well, getting the maximum price now in a regular market, in a regular market, in the market that we just came out of, with home values were on the rise, sellers can clearly price their home to sell at maximum price right now. That's choosing at the market price. Unless they want to sell quicker, they can choose to price behind the market. Sellers also have the opportunity to anticipate where the market is going, and if the time isn't an issue, this could mean holding off. And so getting the maximum price possible, we see that in seasons, right? Where they go, well, I'm not going to list till spring. I want to wait until after January and February. Or the holidays. They want to wait until after the holidays. And so that's the reference to that strategy, where people may hold off, where getting the maximum price possible may mean waiting just a bit. And obviously there's risk in that strategy, but it can work. It absolutely can work. So future pricing, which is something that happens in a shifting declining market, rising market can actually. So a rising market can actually forgive small overpricing on a highly desirable property, but never a big one. Meaning, if I slightly overprice the property and it's a highly desirable property in a normal market, that can be forgiven. But a big error in overpricing that still can't be forgiven. We see that all the time in expired listings, right? Smoking hot properties, they're beautiful, they're in great areas, but they make a big mistake on pricing, the property never sells, and it expires. We already see that. When home prices are falling, sellers are in a real bind. Pricing behind the market when prices are falling means seller just won't sell. Buyers always want to get a great buy. In a clear buyer's market, they are in essence looking for an even greater buy. We talked about that. Okay, so if everything is priced alike, they get confused. In a rising market, they have faith that values are at their lowest and they don't fear current prices. In a falling market, they have no faith in current prices and fear paying too much, right, Josh? That's what's happening. People are starting to get into that mindset that they don't want to pay too much. Now, motivation can cure some of that, which is why intensifying my efforts for lead generation to be engaged with those 9s and 10s matter. As a result, they're looking for the lowest priced home as an indication of the best value. If you're not 1 or 2, 3's like the bottom of the barrel as far as pricing on that will cause your property to sell. You're in trouble. Sellers also have a dilemma in a falling market. It usually means all sellers are going to have to take a price cut. The market price is getting ready to fall across the board. This is when anyone who wants to sell in a shift must become very strategic. Okay, so this is some of the skill set that I got to have to help sellers understand what possibly could happen. If you're a 9 or 10 right now, whether the market's falling or not falling down or not right now, over the next 30 days, and you're a 9 or 10, you got to make a move to get this thing sold. If you're a 9 or a 10, if you're a 10, we got to do something to move this property right now. If you're a 10, sellers have to realize that they must stand out right now, or they'll be chasing the market to the bottom. Their only real choice if they want to maximize their price is to price ahead of the market. This means dropping their price as soon as possible. So obviously this is case by case. And again, I don't want this to be a declaration that go cut all your prices and let's cause a panic right now, which is not the case, right? But paying attention to what's going on. How about this? Make some phone calls to fellow listing agents who are priced in your area. See what's going on. How are showings going? What are you guys up to? What have you experienced? How are you handling showings? That's another conversation we're not going to get into. We might get into on the open forum here in a minute. Their only real choice to maximize their product price ahead of the market. We got time's not on our side. If a home is priced ahead of the market, it will be priced out of the market. If a home isn't priced ahead of the market, it will be priced out of the market. Once sellers fall behind, they can end up chasing the market all the way to the bottom when they could have just sold their home in the first place by pricing it right. We're in a race against time, really. Okay, so I'm going to tie up there with that on the skill set and the conversations to be able to help sellers not be in a situation where they're chasing the market, which could even happen right now because even as we're in the freeze, sellers who are a 9 or 10 still need to sell their property. So the longer I sit on the market, the worse off I am, regardless of what's going on, because showings are still occurring. People still are making offers. Escrows are still being opened. Comments, questions, concerns, delusions.
Paul, I sent a message in the group chat. Basically, how would you approach the conversation of asking the seller as to carry back? Would you be willing to act as the bank in order to get the property sold? Because what we are experiencing right now is not easy to get along. The process is longer right now, and they ask for more.
Are you, Nicole's licking her chops over there, right? So let me get to you in a second, right, Nicole? So are you talking in reference to a deficiency in what the buyer qualifies for versus what the contract price would be, or as a complete seller financing on the whole loan amount, on the whole purchase price amount?
Maybe just doing that for a year or for 9 months until if the seller needs to get out of the property and we don't find buyers that can close in the time frame.
Do you have a specific example that you're thinking of right now?
Well, yeah, it's a property, it's a warehouse, it's over 2 million, and we know it's going to be hard to finance because of all the repairs that need to be done. And
is it already on the market now?
Yes. Well, it's a pocket listing. Okay. So what I find hard is it's hard for me to have that conversation on the listing presentation. Let's put it that way. When you talk about all the options that a seller has regarding to get the property sold.
Yeah. Nicole, you want to jump in on this with me here?
sure. Hi, Maria.
Hi.
What are your
So
thoughts?
I have been doing our seller financing for about 15 years. So I'm not coming from like a whim. But so first and foremost, it depends on what the rules are in Nevada, because every state has something different. The Dodd-Frank Act affected every state a little bit differently. So first get clear on that. But then you can, and that's going to kind of sway your conversation and how to educate them on what's best for them. So I know that in Texas, for example, we can't do rent to own, right? Which is what sometimes people call seller financing, because no proceeds of the rent can go to the purchase of the property. It has to be a divided line. So first and foremost, if I were you, I would get connected with a real estate lawyer in the area that will be willing to work with you, not free of charge, but kind of free of charge, because the deal you're going to make with him is that you're bringing all of these deals to him. So I have a lawyer on retainer for that. I don't pay him a retainer fee, but I bring all of my seller finance deals to him, because then you have like exactly what your state allows. And also you're going to be more educated. I was just telling Paul that there's been videos floating around that, especially in places like Nevada, maybe not so much in Texas because we don't ever get hit as hard, but it's still a thing in Texas, that seller financing is going to be a major thing in this recession, supposedly, right? So if I were you, if you're already having people being curious about that, connect with a lawyer, because as long as you can like commit to them that you're going to bring them deals as they come, they're going to give you the information for free because it's money in their pocket.
Okay.
Does that clear it up kind of? It's kind of hard for me to give you specifics only because I don't know the rules in Nevada and because every situation is different. But once you get in that situation, I can give you questions to ask, because I do both sides of it. I represent the seller, and then I'm the one basically interviewing the buyer for the process.
The buyer, yeah. Okay.
Email Nicole for.
Yeah. I'll put my email in the chat box.
Yeah, put your email in the chat box there. Yeah.
Another is this just an example on in order to close, I don't know if it might help anybody. In order to close another piece of land that I had, I have to get a little bit creative with the strategy. So my buyer wanted to back up because of the situation, everything closed. He had to basically let all his employees go. He wasn't sure if this was the right moment to close on this deal. He was gonna basically back up and lose his earnest money deposit. So what I did is I talked with the lender directly, and what we are doing right now is he's getting 2 loans. So he doesn't have to pay the deposit. So he's basically walking in the property with no money down. So I don't know if that's something that you guys do there, but it worked for me.
If it worked for you, then God bless America, Maria Caldwell.
Okay.
All right, what else you got? Anything that we've talked about today? Pricing, skill set to help sellers get to a place of getting it. That's such a huge one, guys. I know the key indicators on keeping an eye on active, pending, and sold, but that skill set to be able to, because it'll take you 2, 3, 4 times around the conversation to help them get into a place. Now, motivation's a mother, so it'll birth everything. So if you're sitting down with 9s and 10s, you're still going to have a certain level of skill set to help them through that. But if you're sitting down with 5s or 6 or 7s and you haven't pre-qualified at a higher level, you either not going to get them, or you're going to take the property overpriced and you're going to be hating your life in the next 30 days. So questions, comments, things that stuck out, ahas.
I had a prospecting question. It's not.
Oh, there's JJ Tolentino.
What's up, everybody?
What's up, my man?
It's a process. It's not so much price reduction. Is it okay to ask?
Dude, this is the question for him, my man. Give it to me.
Okay, so I was gonna see what your take was, and even just background about like my business. I would say like every other year, I kind of go between like 100% sphere to maybe like 50% cold calls 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do 6 months and just like hammer down some cold calls. And then when I go back to a year of sphere, I do notice there's some people that I didn't keep in touch with that well because I was doing cold calls, and that's just the trade-off, right?
Is it?
I guess. I mean, right? Like you could only call X amount of people per week, and then you just kind of choose what you got to do. You top grade as best you can. So in regards to that topic, do you think like expired withdrawals are gonna
What?
be like a hot thing for the most skillful? I mean, obviously.
All right, so check it out. First of all, I gotta smack your drunk monkey around because
Back it up.
let me smack that drunk monkey down because can you effectively, and now the question is, are you doing it efficiently? Which I'm gonna say no, because you got a problem. Your mindset is, well, it's either or. Really? Is it either or? Now, how efficient, and without going into a long, in-depth conversation with this on how efficient your systems are with how you engage your database and how well you adhere to the time blocking of that. I mean, those are variables that, I mean, we don't know, right? So, but can you create a platform where you're effectively and reasonably maneuvering through database while cold calling? Yes. I hate saying that word, by the way, cold calling. Absolutely. So first of all, like, just put that drunk monkey in the garbage because it doesn't have to be, because I've seen you, dude. You go like hot and heavy one way, or you go hot and heavy the other way.
Yeah, I'm at an extreme.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, like, look, now how you figure that out as far as your CEO time, where you look at what you're doing, you assess that, you hold some level of accountability around that, and with who. I mean, those are all variables. But let me get to the second thing, which is Peter Whip. Peter Whip's in the corner there. He's a brand new agent last 30 days, right? And Peter's no real estate experience. He's new to Austin. He moved from Montana, and he just signed. So last 30 days, brand new realtor. Just signed an expired listing, has 2 out to be signed, and then has another 2 appointments. Peter, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be on an expired listing appointment right now?
We just got it's signed, so we just got back from the calls. We got the second one.
You got a second one to JJ Dontino today.
That's awesome, man.
Now, that's 2 contracts, and you got 2 more out, and then you got another appointment coming today?
I got an appointment at 1, yeah.
1 o'clock. So we won't keep you long because you got to go get that other contract signed. JJ, 30 days in the business. He's going to have 3, 4, 5 contracts signed here. 30 days in the business. Now, some of you guys seen video with guys that I've coached that are like been in the business 90 days, 18 contracts, listings. The other guy was a little over 90 days, 18 contracts. So our expired is going to be an opportunity. Abso-freaking-lutely. They've already raised their hand and said that I want to do something, and I actually already want to be sold, but I'm not. Now, look, the only way that I survived was, and JJ, it's a little bit different here than in Vegas, because when I was in Vegas, you could differentiate withdrawn. They called it withdrawn conditional versus withdrawn unconditional. I can't believe you guys don't do it here. They do it in Cali too, where withdrawn conditional means they're still under contract with the broker. So I could differentiate and see who was withdrawn unconditional, which meant they were free. They weren't under contract. But that shouldn't stop you. I took actually more withdrawn listings than I did expired listings.
So what's your take? Like, you've seen, because people have like their specialties, right? Like, do you see a sphere agent go more hardcore on sphere? Do you see them jump around? Do you just see expired withdrawals, or everybody just kind of
in a market like this? Or are you just saying, what do you mean?
Yeah, kind of like recession stuff, like this post-pandemic situation.
Yeah, well, look, if you're only relying on your sphere, you're going to take a hit. So how big your sphere is going to determine whether you take a hit or whether you're out of the business.
Right.
So if you got a big ass sphere and you're doing, 50, 60, 70 transactions, you're going to take a hit and your lifestyle is going to be seriously interrupted. And while you may not get out of the business, there will be a lot of pain. And then maybe you're doing 100+ transactions. Again, you might not be out of business, but your profit is going to take a serious hit. And it's going to be painful. So that passive means of relying solely or specifically or on as a whole, a majority of your business, you really need to take a look at how you're going to create lead generation methods of creating new business and creating new conversations. Social media is a fantastic thing that people should be engaging right now, because in 2007, 8, and 9, and 10, Facebook wasn't a thing on how you marketed for listings or buyers. Like that it wasn't a thing. And so you need to get your butt on that, or maybe you're going after expireds or FSBOs and take advantage of that. But however you're going to do it, once the cloud clears and maybe you become an open house freak, maybe that's it. Maria Calvo. We can't hear you. Hold on. Start again, Maria Calvo.
Okay, I have a question now that you mentioned open houses. So this is a general question. I believe the way that we are gonna be doing business is gonna change completely, and I already see that. Like, for example, New York only allows virtual showings, and in Miami right now, insurance companies, they are doing inspections virtually already. So what is your opinion on that? What are your thoughts on?
My thoughts are we take it as
having people walking into your property. And
I mean, I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, because we can only take it as it comes.
Okay.
And we can only take it as it comes. And what you focus on expands, right, JJ Tolentino? And so what I got to focus on is, okay, what can I do right now? Could it open up tremendously and we go right back to where we were? Yes. Could there be a whole new norm as far as how we deal with open houses and showings? Yes. What that's going to be, it's all hypothetical and in the crystal ball until it actually unfolds in front of us. My focus right now has to be, how do I talk to more people?
Okay.
Because I got problems right now. The market's look, we know this. Real estate runs in 90-day cycles. What I do today dictates what I get paid. Look, it's right now, April 3rd, April, May, June, July. Guys, June and July is going to be ugly. June and July is going to be, look, regardless of if this is a speed bump and like we hop back on the horse here in May, which I don't see happening. I really do not see happening. People, even if you're being aggressive, which some of you are, on reaching out to your database and calling expires, Peter, dude, you have no idea what you've accomplished in just the last few weeks is freaking huge. If Dan Mum ends up watching this, he was looking for role play partners. I told him to get with you. You remind me a lot of Dan, who was on my team. He was my number one guy. He was my number one salesman on my team for my second team. I had 2 teams in Vegas, the short sale team, and when everything was going crazy with short sales, and then I had to totally reorganize and create a new team based on the market shifting. And Dan came hot and heavy, and we had our own little mini power hour that you see on some of the first videos I did online. Within, I think he almost did 100 transactions last year, and he's fifth year in the business, fifth. I think he's 5th year in the business. I'm not sure what it is. But he's one of the top agents at Berkshire Hathaway now, because he puts himself in a position to be able to, how am I going to create new conversations? How am I going to create new conversations? Now, big mistake I made was not paying attention to the conversations I needed to have with my database, JJ Tolentino, and systematizing that through technology that allowed me to create mind share and stay top of mind, while being able to create accountability with direct conversations. Thank you, Avi Dengor from Berkshire Hathaway in Las Vegas. But a blend of both. Right? To stay alive in this market, back to that question, is that I'm going to need a blend of both. And what I focus on right now is, while having conversations, watching YouTube, seeing what's going on with television, and keeping track of key metric numbers, key indicators with what's going on with the market, to understand kind of what's happening. I want to pay attention to stuff like that, but I can't get too sucked into it because I got to deal with what's going on right now and how I can generate business right now and stay alive, and deal with what I do now dictates what happens in 90 days from now.
Okay.
We're tying up here. Final thoughts, ahas, big takeaways.
Can I say something, Paul, real quick?
Please.
I guess I feel like what's helped me the most is not bringing up this whole COVID-19 thing in my calls. For the first couple of times I had been like leading in just like to open with that. And then since I've not been bringing it up, I've had a lot better responses. If people bring it up themselves, then I acknowledge it. But I just feel like not leading with negativity kind of helped me.
This is on expired calls though, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. What's the point? I mean, we deal with it. We got to deal with it. But let's talk about selling your property. What's happening with that? Now, you'll get objections, right? I'm sure you've heard it too. Well, let me hold off and see what happens, right? You're getting that?
Yes, I am, especially with withdrawals.
And then, so what's your response to that?
I mean, because a lot of people feel like the market's been slowing down, so I'll literally send them the market, like the snapshot of the last 7 days, and talk to them about that the market's super hot.
Yeah.
Like the listing we got signed today wasn't withdrawn. Like we withdrew like a couple of days ago.
There you go.
Because of what we shared with her and just following up,
Yeah. By the way, when somebody, regardless of whether it's expired or you're just talking to a potential buyer candidate or seller candidate, usually because your skill set still is fundamental, it's basic, and you really haven't been intentional about engaging and staying in good conversation, staying in the question, staying casually curious. When somebody says, look, I'm not going to do anything right now, typically that's what makes the amateurs fall over. And go away, versus repeating and approving, like, right, Peter, what we talk about in Power Hour, to stay in the okay, cool. You're not going to do anything right now. Hey, I totally understand that. With everything going on, you want to keep your family safe and you're not doing anything. I totally respect that. And so where were you going to move to next though? So what was that going to mean? So what happened? So why do you think it didn't sell? So once you do move forward, I know that's not right now, but so what is that going to look like? Staying in the conversation and staying curious versus falling into these little smoke screens because that's all they got is to go, hey, not right now. That's a basic objection. Not right now. Okay, COVID, fine. But that's a basic objection. Not right now. But you are going to do something. Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's talk about that.
Oh, this is a question, well, it's mostly like residential, but how do you deal with when sellers tell you, well, I don't want anybody walking into my property right now?
Sure. And give me the context though. You're talking to expired, you're talking to your database that people want to sell.
People that want to sell, expired, like whatever, somebody that wants to sell, but they say, I don't want anybody walking into my house.
Yeah. So you don't want anybody walking into your house. I totally appreciate that. And you know what, Maria, I don't want anybody walking into your house right now. I mean, it's just not the right time. And at the same time, if the property sells in May or June or July, is that a problem for you?
Yeah.
Okay, no, time out. Just break script for a second. This is pre-appointment. We're not sitting down, or we are at the appointment?
We are not at the appointment.
Yeah. So if the property sells in May or June or July, would that be a problem for you?
No.
Okay. So why don't we do this? Obviously, you're not going to move forward until you feel comfortable. Do I understand that correctly? Yeah. And I wouldn't expect you to, Maria. So let's do this. There's some things that you can do, because where is everybody right now? Where is everybody? Where is everyone right now?
It should be at home.
At home.
They're at home, right? And so if there's some things that we can do to create visibility without people walking through your property to create demand, where maybe you're not even on the market, but we begin to get ahead of the market, because if there's a financial advantage to be able to get you ahead of the market and deal with that in May or June. I mean, we're having a conversation around that. That's not unreasonable, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now remember, I don't want to sell a decision. I want to sell the appointment, which is conversation for consideration. I don't want to sell. You don't want anybody to come through your house? Perfect. I don't want anybody to come through your house either until you're ready. Now, do you want to sell? That's another question, right? And I tie that down and go, and I like that future pacing, because right now, they're thinking about right now. But if the property sells in June or July, because even if it goes on the market in May, okay, it sells in June. or it goes on the market in end of May, June. It goes on the market in June and it sells in July or August. Could I lock up the contract in the next few weeks or this month? It's the beginning of April. Could I do that? Do this.
Yeah.
I establish trust. I build rapport. I got to figure out how far I'm going to take it, but like sell the appointment for conversation around consideration, not for a decision. It's good. It's good. You guys good?
Yes, this is great.
All right. Next week, we're going to be doing dealing with apprehensive buyers on the fence, buyers who are, they're just sitting by the wayside and they're just having anxiety, which they should be. Everybody's a little anxious right now. It's totally understandable. Do you have something? Who said something? JJ?
Hey, Paul, I got a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead, Anthony.
Hey, man. So I'm working with a buyer right now. She wants to purchase a $2.5 million property here in Santa Monica. And I've been sending her properties, but she hasn't been responding like this past week. So I just want to know, like, what would you do in that case to kind of, get back to communicating with her and trying to get in contact with her?
Yeah, I would go rent a hazmat and then knock on her door. I'm just kidding.
That's a good idea.
I'm just joking. I'm just joking, Joe. I'm just joking. You should have seen the look on Joe's face. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You know what?
Toilet paper.
Have you? Yeah, rent a hazmat and come with a packet of toilet paper. What?
Sounds good.
What? Have you texted her at all?
Yeah, for my mentor, I sent her like a video text. She hasn't gotten back to me after that as well.
So how many times have you attempted to contact her since the last direct communication?
Like none.
None. Okay. So when did you send a video text? Before you talked to her?
That was like 2 weeks ago. And
Okay.
I was like, I don't know where she is. I don't know what happened. So I just kind of stopped. I don't know.
So wait, you had a conversation with her, right? Directly?
Right.
And then you got the video text after that?
Not after. It was more like about 2 weeks of like no communication. And then after that time period, I sent her a video text. And then now she still hasn't responded. So I'm still kind of like,
Okay. So this is what you do. This is what you need. You need to go. Do you have the playbook?
Yeah, I do. Yep.
All right. So go in the playbook under strategies. There's strategies for dealing with hot buyers, because a hot buyer, whether it's a seller or a buyer, there needs to be a hot buyer, a hot prospect, whether it's a seller or a buyer. You need some sort of touch plan, something systematized for people you don't know. If this is somebody you know, it's a little bit different, but I still would be reaching out weekly by 2 or 3 methods of contact, phone, text, email. Okay. At least 2 methods minimum. I'm going to call you. You don't pick up. I leave a message. I send you a text and you got an email. Okay. And even if it's somebody that I know, I'm still going to reach out and call and text once a week if they were still thinking about it, until they say like, "Hey, no, I'm holding off right now." And then I distance that out to once a month. But for leads that you don't know, go into the playbook on strategies to be able to set up some sort of system around those 3 methods of contact and how you systematize that. Because look, they're just not thinking. And if they're a hot lead, then using those three methods over a course of a week and a month you're gonna need to systematize that, because if you just try to do it on your own and remember it, that lead's gonna slip away from you. So systematize that and know that motivated prospects love aggressive salespeople, but and they're not thinking of you because they got too much else going on. So a phone call to say what's up and a text to go, "Hey," is not a big deal. And if it's in your mindset that you're bothering people, you got to do something about that. Because
maybe that's the mindset. Yeah.
Yeah.
She, like, last we spoke, like on the phone, she's like, "Yeah, I'm trying to find a place like a lot sooner than later." So she's really hot, so, but yeah, I got to get on top of that.
So, and use hooks to create conversation. I've heard somebody on this phone call, I've coached with that before on, "Hey, I had a quick question." "Hey, I found something. I want to tell you about it." Something to provoke or prompt a response. Okay, we're out of time. Guys, see you next week. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Paul.
Next week, we're working on buyers, anxious buyers next week. You guys have a great week. Hey, share some love, share some light.
Bye-bye. Paul, where are you going to share the link?
It's the same link you used today.
Okay.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.